All right, everybody, peace. Welcome to the Sorry to Bother You show. Wherever or have you are listening, we're so grateful to have you here with us. As you guys know, I'm your host, Givon Conner. I'm joined as usual by my co-host, Mr. Dre Pennington.
What's good, y'all? How we doing? We good? We Gucci, y'all?
Trey, how you feeling?
I feel good, and I feel like this is gonna be, another one of those really special episodes.
Every episode is a special episode, brother. I agree with you. Guys, today we have one of my brothers on the show today. We have been friends for what, 10 plus years now. Um,
Wow.
I'm blessed to call him my brother. He's one of my closest friends, one of the most intellectual individuals that I know, one of the hardest working individuals that I know, and quite frankly, one of the most inspiring people that I know as well. I'm so blessed to have him in my inner circle. Uh, Givon Conner, everybody.
It's crazy that you say that, Kashawn, man, because everything you say, I can echo just right back at you. It's been one hell of a friendship, man. You're one of many that I've made long term and a lifelong friendship that I know, just like you said, we call each other brothers. It's deeper than just a single friendship. So definitely
Absolutely.
appreciate it. And right back at you, man. Inspiration. Been a great influence, just always been somebody to help lead me towards the right thing. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Just as iron sharpens irons, so does a friend sharpens another friend, man. So that's all love on both these ways, bro. So you know how it goes.
Yes, sir.
But Givon, man, we're so blessed to have you on the show today. How you feeling, bro? Let's talk about that first. How you feeling right now?
You want to do like a little a mental, physical, and spiritual check?
We'll break it down to the four quadrants, bro. Let's start with the physical. Physically, bro, how you feeling?
Physically, I feel great. This is the physically, this is the strongest I've ever felt in a really long time. Um, just taking care of my body, making sure that I'm going to the gym, doing my push-ups and sit-ups in the morning, and trying to put the right stuff in my body.
Yeah, yeah. You do boxing, right? You
I
do
do
boxing.
box. I don't tell a whole lot of people that I box. I kind of just keep it in the back. It's one of those things where I think it was a fear factor. It was kind of one of those things where one of the areas where you're not the strongest at, or you just simply are. That's just not who you are. I just kind of wanted to stand up against that and grow there.
Right.
And it just transpires so well into the rest of life.
So was that your way of getting out of your comfort zone?
Yes. Like if anything else, I feel like career wise, I know we'll jump into all that stuff, but I've never been afraid to jump out into the world. But jumping into the middle of a pit 1-on-1, you squaring away, that just was never my thing. So growing there, like it's a it's a battle, man. I feel like I'm fighting for my life, which is a good thing.
Mm. Hands is ready to eat for everybody. I see. All right.
Oh man, it's a learning process. It's a learning process.
Yeah. So mentally, how are you feeling?
Mentally, scale of 1 to 10, I say, and since the year started, let's go with that. Since the year started, I say about a 7.5, 8. I think I've been a lot mentally weaker in times in the past, but these times have just been a lot better for me. And I have days where I'm a 9 or 10, but I think we just go through so much in life and in the middle of a pandemic where people are unfortunately passing and um, grieving. It's hard to be at a 8 or above. It's
Right.
hard to stay at an 8 or above.
Right. I agree.
Okay.
I think it's important to be level-headed, even
Yeah.
killed at all times. Because
Yes.
like you're saying, like there are gonna be days where you might feel like you're a 5 out of 10,
Mm-hmm.
or you're a 3, or shoot, some days you might feel like you're a 2 out of
Mm-hmm.
10. But I think it's important to remember that you might feel like a 2 right now, but tomorrow you're probably gonna feel like a 6 or a 7. You'll go back. The law of averages is gonna work out, and everything's gonna average back out. But when you're low, you can't stay low for too long. And when you're high, you have to put everything in perspective and realize, okay, I'm enjoying this moment for right now, but anything can happen. So just
Yes,
proper
man.
perspective.
That's crazy you say that. I was just talking to somebody the other day and I said, and it was a day that I was down. It was a day where I was just really struggling. And the way I described it, sometimes we can climb so high up a ladder, you
Mhm.
can sometimes be low, but I'll speak from the high perspective. You can climb so high up a ladder. You can be chasing your dreams and putting all the work and everything that you have behind your name, putting behind it, and you climb up so high, and then you look down,
Mm.
and then it's like there's just this fear factor. It's just this fear. It's just this fear of failing, this fear of falling off the ladder, this fear of like, am I doing enough to continue going? Do I have it in me? Just like if you've ever experienced being afraid of heights, it's the same thing. You look down, I feel like I'm gonna fall.
Right.
That's the first feeling. So that was the way I described it, man. It's like we can be on these journeys of trying to climb our ladders, our individual ladders, but it's always scary to look down.
Yeah. But do you think looking down is necessary to remember where you come from?
Yes. I always say that there's blessings and obstacles. So if the obstacle for a person is looking down and you feel it, you feel that obstacle in front of you, it's just about how you respond to it. So now that you've looked down, are you gonna fall off? Are you gonna push yourself off the ladder? Because there's nothing that's pushing you off. The only thing that's pushing you off is your mental telling you that you're gonna fall. So I think it's about how you respond to it and how you turn back around and keep going up.
Okay. Okay. I like that. So no matter what adversity, because everyone's going to face adversity on the path that they
Mm-hmm.
go, it's about how you respond, how you
Yep,
react to that adversity.
exactly.
I like that. So spiritually, brother, how are you feeling?
Now that I can say spiritually, I'm about a 9.5, and and you know what? I don't give it 100 because I have friends and peers of people, not to compare, but I just see how much dedication and effort they put into their spirituality. Them folks to me at a 10, but that would be from my lens, right? They might feel like they had a 9 or 9.5. Point
Right.
is, I know that I could go even harder, but as far as how I feel about it, as far as my relationship with God, and my own inner peace, I say about a 9, 9.5, and that's a blessing to be able to say because there was times when I didn't have that. There was times when I would say a 2 or a 3,
Mm-hmm.
walking, feeling lost, blind, following the blind,
Yeah.
and just letting that be a thing. Even though it made me feel bad, even though it made me feel like I know this ain't it. There were times when I was there. So I'm just glad to say, God has uh he never let go in the first place, but he definitely made me go through some adversities that changed my perspective on life and what's important to me.
Absolutely. And but you know this, brother. The Most High will never put you through anything that you couldn't handle to begin with,
Facts.
right? And everything that He puts you through is about character growth and development. Making us better
Yes, sir.
individuals in the end. But but now that we know how you're feeling, brother, it's good to hear that you're on the up and up.
Yeah, man. How y'all feeling? I wanna hear from y'all too. How y'all
Mm.
feeling?
Dre, how you feeling? Why don't you go first?
Uh, you know, physically could be better. Probably I say like a 8. Try to get better with that. Spiritually, I'm always gonna feel good. I just know I always got somebody right there on my shoulder helping me out. And then mentally, I like he said, with just the everyday struggles, pandemic, just the uncertainty of everything. I gotta go like a 7, 6.8, right around there. It's just a lot of uncertainty for me right now, so I'm just worried about that. But it's getting better every day. That's how I feel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Uh, I'm blessed, man. The Most High allowed me to wake up this morning, so I'm thankful for that, and that's all that really matters. I got a roof over my head. I got food to eat. I got a great support system. I got a great career. I get to do something I love for a living. I have absolutely nothing to complain about. Yeah, I'm at peace. But I will say this though, and Givon, me and you talked about this off the show a couple weeks ago. It's
Yeah.
that feeling of always feeling you can do more, right?
Yeah.
That like not feeling content. And I want to segue this into like your journey to where you got to today. So that feeling of always wanting to do more, always feeling what you've done right now is not good enough. How has that affected your journey to where you are now?
It's one thing I want to call out real quick. It was on my mind. Your boy Dre, I'm sorry, had said something, and he said everyday struggle, and I had the hat on, so I had to think for a second. And it's gonna tie into your question too. But by the way, shout out to my boys brand D Falana. He got the Everyday Hustle brand, black owned brand. So y'all make sure y'all check that out.
Yep.
But so to answer your question, I think like knowing the things when we get into these feelings of like I'm not doing enough, and the reason I said this will tie in, I think it becomes this like realization that it's just a grind. Like that's the thing. Like you have your own limitations, you have your own reasons, inspirations to grind. So when you put those things forward, it's gonna feel like that regardless. How much are you putting into hustling and getting after it versus looking at everything like a struggle? Because again, the struggle is gonna be there no matter what. So why swim in that water when you can swim in the glass half full?
Right. So you're saying that we shouldn't see it as a struggle, but see it as an opportunity to grow and
Acknowledge
develop.
the struggle. Acknowledge the
Yeah.
struggle because you're gonna come across people that, like, if I say today to a person who's telling me their struggles, right? And I
Mhm.
say, hey, don't look at it like this. Look at it like this. That's not always acknowledging a person's struggles. Sometimes just being able to say, damn, man, like I really am sorry that you're going through that. Or, you know what, like that's just crazy, trying to give them solutions or whatever. But sometimes like if you skip that part and jump straight into solutionizing on how to look at things or just trying to immediately provide perspectives, I think it really is important to acknowledge the struggles of other people. But that time again, it comes back full circle. So acknowledging those things and then talking about solutions or trying to help somebody, I think is really important just to give them that I don't want to say satisfaction, build that trust with them and build that sense of empathy between you two.
Okay. So in terms of acknowledging your
Mm-hmm.
struggles, so tell us about what struggles you might have had on your journey up to where you've gotten to today.
The biggest struggles to where I am today, I would say, has been a collection of things. One, not knowing history of who you are prior to you walking this earth. So
Mhm.
as a young Black man, I'm biracial, by the way, so I'll speak on both sides. But to start off, before I can jump into the Black, I think the easier one to explain is my white side. I only know maybe 4 or 5 people, or at least I can count on my two hands how many people on that side of my family I've ever met or known. Um, which I'm not as enthused to just dive into it, but not knowing it too does play a role into my identity. Second, as a young Black man, this one's a lot more dramatic. I think when you understand how racism, slavery, and oppression has played a part into stealing who you are, that becomes a difference. At least on my white side, I can say there might be a reason as to why I don't know who these people are in my family, which for me, mental health and all the rest of that plays a big factor. I'm sorry, real quick, give me a second. But yeah, mental health and a few other factors have definitely played a big part of that. But on the Black side, it's like those things were stolen. Those things didn't just get lost. They didn't just randomly. The history didn't just get abandoned because the family didn't care to keep up with it. Those things were stolen historically or rewritten, and the credit has been taken away from some of the great things that you could find out about your family. And so I think those things alone add so much pressure to the struggle of like, who the hell am I? And
Right.
and when you're reaching those, when you're taking strides, and that's in the back of your mind, maybe subconsciously, but it's there. You start to question, like I think the right term. Some people say imposter syndrome, and you're like, am I doing what I'm doing just to feel like I'm somebody, or is this really what I'm supposed to be doing?
Right.
Mm.
Right. And,
That's where the struggle starts. Go ahead.
and Jerome, we talked about that imposter syndrome as well. So do you think that when you get imposter syndrome, does that stem from maybe a lack of self-confidence, you think?
Yes, for sure. Like in my own circumstances, I think because of who I have been in my life, not who I was at the core, but surface level Givon, right? The person that society thinks I am and who I believe I am because society thinks that's who I am too. That person, I would say in the past has not always been a positive example of a great human being in society, let's just say, right? And so when you're there, I can paint myself as that society can, whatever. When you're there at that point in your life and you try your best to grow from it in any capacity, it becomes this like tug of war between ego and heart. Just me maybe wanting to do it because I don't want people to think that I'm a bad person, or me doing it because I just want to be a good person. You know what I'm saying? So I think in that sort of tug of war, you start to question and you start to doubt like one side over the other. Your ego starts to play tricks on you and make you think like you might just want this for the wrong reasons, when deep down you're still questioning, or excuse me, deep down but your ego is forcing you to question. It's just playing trickery. And again, like, I think that's what causes a lot of doubt. I think just not knowing why you're doing the things you do, or why you're moving the way you are, not being able to conjoin purpose within your life, especially without God. Like, if you don't have God around, that you don't know what you're doing. You don't know. You have a plan, but your plan never goes the right way. So you're just constantly like backtracking and walking into the wilderness. Whereas like when you got God, at least somebody's pointing the light. At least somebody's pointing and blessing you with things that you would have never ever fathomed having in your life, because you followed that light, and leads to purpose.
Right. Even when you have the Most High in your life, even when, like you said, when you feel like you personally might not know the path where your path is leading to,
Mm-hmm.
but at least when you have the Most High in your life, at least you're on a path.
Right.
You
Right.
leading, but the Most High is leading that path, and
Yes.
so Hebrews 11:1 says, "For faith is confidence in the evidence of the things not seen." So when
Mm-hmm.
you have the Most High in your life, you're able to say, "Okay, I'm putting my faith in the Most High. I can't see what's about to happen. I can't see what's going to happen in the future, but I know that whatever's going to happen is going to be in my best interest
Yes.
moving forward."
Exactly.
So I would, just to stay on the topic of faith, and I want to get into like your journey and where you've gotten to today, because you touched on this a little bit. Why don't you tell us about who you were as an individual prior to getting into college, and how that has affected you? Because I want people to
Okay,
understand
that's
how
easier.
important, you know what I mean?
That's easier. That's easier. I thought you were gonna say who I was in like the last couple of years, man. I was gonna be like, I was a different breed. No, but before college, I was just one of those curious, rebellious kids. Like anything that questioned authority. Well, not anything, but me and Kashan, we were kind of boxed in to like a military style, or excuse me, military lifestyle. So having parents who were in the military, living on military bases, the rules were a little bit different. Societal rules, not legal rules, but societal rules. So you're not gonna be on a military base and dudes are slinging dope on the block. Like, that's not how stuff works. So the type of rules and boundaries that we had were a lot less like they were a lot less harmful, or excuse the things that you would do, like the things that you could get in trouble for. Obviously, you can get in trouble for anything, but the type of rules that were like the different rules were definitely light rules, and I used to tend to break those a lot. And I was one of the few to kind of carry that persona, or have that in my character. And so I was just that class clown, but like not the one that everyone's always laughing with. Some Most of the time is laughing at because I probably made a fool of myself. So
Mm.
it's just like those types of things that I grew up, or those characteristics that I had that really made up who I was on the surface. And like I never really liked that. I can never look in the mirror and just be happy with who I was, because I knew that a lot of the things that I was doing wasn't really who I was. It was like I was doing them for reasons I really couldn't explain. I didn't have therapists, I didn't have counselors, I didn't have um I didn't have the ability to speak on like childhood traumas and stuff like that, because I didn't really know how those things played out. I just thought that's who I was.
Right.
So it was hard to break out of that.
Right. So what caused you to transition from that mindset that you had in high school to the mindset you had even in college, and even to, you know, being a young man out of college? How is that transition? What caused that transition in your state of mind?
All of the trouble that I got in, it exploded in my face in high school right at the end. Kashawn, you know the story.
Yeah,
We ain't
yeah.
gonna jump all
You
the
don't,
way in,
you don't gotta get into it. Yeah.
but I got myself into a lot of trouble, and it didn't take me. It didn't. Well, it definitely took me my whole life of trouble to realize it. But in the trouble that I was in, it didn't take me long to realize how bad I fucked up. So, excuse my language,
No,
y'all.
you're good. You're
How
good.
bad I messed up,
Fine, you're fine.
but it didn't take me too long to realize how bad I had messed up. And when I was sitting and soaking in my consequences, it was just you just sitting in you're sitting in a pile of your own crap.
Yeah.
And when you're sitting there and you're smelling it for once, like it makes you think of what you could have did different. How could you have avoided it? What was your role? Um, and not blaming your circumstances. Like when I'm sitting there soaking in my traumas from my childhood, I noticed that I would have a tendency to use those things as like the reasons why I did this or that, or making excuses as to just why I was just being a bad person. When in reality, like I had a lot of good people around me. Kashawn, you just like we talked about earlier, you've always been a great one around me.
Mhm.
Using him as an example, I didn't know everything that Kashawn went through as a child. I wasn't around him in his childhood. But regardless of what he went through, Kashawn was never the type to be like abusive to the world because he was going through something.
Right.
And so again, so just using him as an example, like I guess when I was sitting in my own consequences, I kept thinking of how I could have responded better, how I could have got up better. So it's not just about getting up, but it's also about how do you kind of get up the right way? How do you get up and not get up just to throw the same punches?
Yeah.
How do you get up and come up with a new plan and something that's going to work so you can succeed? So I think that me sitting in my circumstances, me pointing inward was really what led to me ultimately changing. And there's just a lot of inspiration that came out of that to kind of get me there.
Right. So that inspiration and that newfound assortment to better yourself and to feel energized and to be productive, how did that benefit you in college?
Um, it's funny when when I didn't even plan on going to college, just gonna be honest with y'all. Like I didn't think I was gonna go to college. I didn't take my SAT, my ACT, nothing. And when I got into college, I didn't have any sense of direction, anybody that could tell me what I was supposed to be doing. So it didn't really transpire until I went through those first couple of years of college because like when it didn't feel much different than high school. The only difference was I felt like I had a change of heart, but I didn't have a change of mind. Like as far as okay, now my mind and heart are connected. Let me be on my stuff. Let me go get straight A's. Let me not worry about distractions. So point is like it took me being a 17-year-old going to college on his own and fending for my own to really, really understand what life was and what choices I wanted to make, what path that I want to walk down. Because you get exposed to so much. Like when you go to college, when you're a freshman, it doesn't matter if you go to a junior college, university, it does not matter. When
Yeah.
you show up to college and you're on your own, there's no more parents waking you up. There's no more breakfast being made. There's no more money just being lobbed at you for lunch. Like you got to go get it. There's a big difference. And going through that, I quickly was like, okay, look, 2 years has passed. I say quickly, 2 years is a little while,
Yeah.
but 2 years has passed, and you ain't done a dang thing with your life. You ain't done nothing. You've been sitting here literally just living to get by with no sort of plan or nothing. And it was one of those times where I had talked to God for once. And God led me to one of our friends, Kashawn. Me and Carrie hopped on the phone one day when I was looking for schools. I was like, you know what? I'm about to wrap up my junior college and I really don't know what I want to do. So I kind of just looked to some friends to see if they had ideas. And she told me about a school in her conference. She track in Florida,
Yes.
University of
One of the
yeah.
best cross country runners to ever go to FAU, by the way, Carrie Delise.
Oh wow.
Good friend of ours. Yeah,
the
just had to
goat,
give her a
the
shout
goat,
out. Yeah.
one of the goats, man.
Yeah.
She told me about a school in her conference that was in Texas. I was living in San Antonio, so that's kind of where I was looking to stick around, but I was open to ideas. She told me about a school up north in near Dallas, and I think I literally went to their website and I scrolled for maybe 5 seconds before I said, "That's where I'm going."
Mm.
Don't know. I don't know what it was. It's just something was just on my heart to feel or think like that. And it was the only university I ever applied to. I went home that same winter. So it was going into winter break. I went home that winter to go see my family. I had a big suitcase, biggest suitcase I could get, packed all my stuff in Virginia, or excuse me, in Texas. And while I was home in Virginia, I got the acceptance letter saying I got in. So I flew right to I flew right into Dallas. I didn't go back to San Antonio. I went straight to Dallas. And I showed up with a suitcase, didn't have no lease or nothing like that. I went straight into the leasing office of one of the apartments I had seen on the internet and signed the lease that same day.
Oh
And
wow.
so as soon as I got to that point, like everything kind of started to shift. Like now I'm about to really be experiencing new stuff because guys just thrown me into a new environment as a completely like new me, almost like a new version of myself, and with a new perspective because he was giving me blessings. Like he put me in a place where 2 years, one thing that happened that was really major in my 2 years in junior college, I went through a really bad relationship. So that made me hit rock bottom. That made me question whether or not I even wanted to be alive. You know what I'm saying? So
Now, why was that relationship so detrimental, you feel?
you put all your eggs into one basket. It's common, man. It's a typical love story where you get your heart broke. You just put all your eggs into one basket, and when you experience life with a new person, and you put all of it in, and you've only known each other for less than a year, like you didn't give it the proper amount of time before you started having consensual sex and all the rest of what comes with it, the emotions, and it's just a lot, man. So, uh, being in those types of relationship where there's a lot of emotional abuse or trigger points or boundaries that are being crossed and you don't even know they're being crossed both ways, I think it played into a huge part. But like, yeah, it definitely made me hit rock bottom. But again, grace of God and understanding and wisdom made me realize it just wasn't the end of the world. So having a new start, a new version of myself, I dang near completely even forgot. I don't want to say forgot, but definitely got to a point where it wasn't hurting me or it wasn't stabbing me or poking me. Like the wounds were definitely healing. So to have that new start and everything, just jumping into that type of college environment, I met a few brothers of mine today, a few of my frat brothers at the time, or excuse me, a few of my frat brothers today, just good guys at the time. I saw the type of things that they were doing on campus, and I saw Black leadership. I saw
Mm.
I saw SGA members who were in that fraternity. I saw leaders of Black organizations and the rest of that. So I already knew like God was throwing me into a different place where yes, you're on a PWI campus, but you have Black leadership, which is inspiring. It was very inspiring.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
absolutely. And just to speak on that, Javon, because I completely understand what you're saying, being at a PWI, but still feeling that need in your heart to have Black leadership at a PWI. I remember we talked about this when we were forming the Black Student Union at SVU. Remember, I was talking to you like, hey, man, what are some things that we
Yes.
can do to be more beneficial? And I remember you were giving me so much advice. So I completely understand what you're saying when you talk about
Yes, sir.
having that Black leadership, man. It's
Yeah,
vital.
man, it's really important. Super inspiring too. Like when you see other people that look like you in positions of leadership, they talk about corporate America and they talk of the numbers and they talk of equality and those initiatives that they have. A lot of corporations will fall short because they don't have leaders who look like them. They have maybe team leaders, they have maybe team members, maybe a couple levels up. But when you have executives that don't look like you, when you have VPs that don't look like you, directors that don't look like you, um, does that mean that I have a stopping point? Does that mean that I have a point at which I just max out
Right.
and there's nothing left for me after that? It creates that. I feel like it attributes to it at least.
Yeah.
Mm.
But Javon, I talk about this all the time. I personally, I feel like the corporate world isn't meant for the so-called black man. I feel like there's so much we can do. We're so talented that I feel like we're boxed in when we move into the corporate world. But when I say that, I don't want to misconstrue that and misinterpret.
Sure.
But because I know you have to do what you have to do to make a living for yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So I completely understand going corporate and doing what you need to do to provide for yourself. But I feel like once you're at a point where you're able to provide for yourself and make ends meet, I feel like you have to do whatever's necessary to form your own path. And quite frankly, Javon, being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's really important. I'm glad you hit on that. We're at a very interesting time because of COVID. The workforce, the expectations of the workforce have drastically changed. So, introducing work from home situations is definitely a game changer. Like, the amount of time that it takes to show up to work and be yourself, if you can show up to work yourself, the amount of time it takes to just have a work day. By the time you get home, it might be 5-6 o'clock in the evening. That's if you didn't go to the gym. So maybe you go to the gym after work. Maybe you go during work. But if you go during work, you're sacrificing lunch. There's a lot of stuff, right? So given the new way of working, I think introduces so many new blessings. I'm able to work from home and work on more than one business. I'm able to, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm able to fit this in and make it work for me without a 9-to-5 being the expectation anymore. Corporate, is it for the black man? That's a great question. I don't know if what corporate America is today. There's definitely a chip on your shoulder as a black man, as a black woman, black human being in the workforce. You have a chip on your shoulder, and unfortunately, the untold expectation is for you to work twice as hard as everybody else.
With the lower cap though, we're twice as hard, but our cap, our ceiling, isn't as high.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. Like, I can't say that in every single circumstance that I've been in that Givon Conner has directly related. Like, how would I explain? It always seems as if like I get a decent size end of the stick, but I'm surrounded by like friends and peers and family who don't. And that affects me just as much because like, even if Givon gets promotion and I know I worked hard for it, but I have another friend who I know works even harder than me and gets passed up for promotion for a guy who I know doesn't put the work in. It's not about me. It's like, dang, like you gonna just treat another human being like that. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the things that I see in the workforce that make me feel like it is a challenge as a black person, man or woman, to be in corporate America. There's a lot of challenges that come with it because even when you think like, nah, it can't be that, you still have that feeling that's based on like it's what's the right word? Justified feeling or fear of like this person could be up against me to kind of lower my name and my status, not give me the credit that I deserve to move up in the world. That I think systematically it's just there. And when people complain about it, like you want to try to give your other coworkers that are not of color the benefit of the doubt, but it's just so hard because you know how history has definitely played a part into why things are still the way they are today.
Okay. So Givon, speaking of the concept of entrepreneurship, right? And then you also spoke about working from home and that experience. How has the work from home experience inspired you to become an entrepreneur?
That's a great question, man. Let me tell you something. So before the pandemic, I used to work at JCPenney. Anybody who knows where JCPenney is today, it is, for me, let me speak on something first. Great place to work at, but as far as where the company is headed is not the best. Like they are a struggling retailer who just climbed out of bankruptcy by getting bailed out by malls. So I was working there at a time where they were on a they were on a slow down climb. Like it was like they probably had another 20 years that they could have managed with the amount of cash flow and everything. I used to go to work, and my first boss, they were pretty flexible and lenient about work from home. We didn't have an official policy at that company, but like they were pretty flexible, and they didn't mind me every other day or however often working from home, and I loved it. I had another boss who came after him, and she was really strict. She didn't like us doing that. So I used to always joke around and say, "Can I work from home now? Can I work from home now?" Um, or whatever. And finally, the pandemic hit, and I said, "Does this mean we get to work from home?" And sure enough, sure enough, sure enough, we ended up working from home. So that started it. I lost, or excuse me, the company had announced they were gonna terminate or furlough 70% of the headcount.
Wow.
So 70% of a company, that's a drastic move. That means that what would have taken 20 years to eventually fall into a bankruptcy situation is now looking at within the year, maybe the next year. So they were making drastic moves, and
That's heavy.
it was heavy. And I was already writing resumes. I was already we're gonna get into that. I know you talk about entrepreneurship. So I
Yeah.
had already been working on resumes and stuff like that. And for me at the time, it was just another means of trying to help somebody else get a chance in the corporate world. I found my way. I found my way how to get into corporate America. Why not help other people? So all this work from home stuff starts hitting, and they let go of that headcount out of nowhere. Maybe a month after, or within a month after that 70% deduction, Salesforce, another company, big tech company, they reached out to me, and I had already interviewed there towards the end of 2019. They reached out to me with a job offer. So all the things that I was doing in the background to maintain that relationship with Salesforce, the recruiter who initially reached out and got me through the interview process, I did a lot of groundwork to keep a relationship going with her, just for mutual benefit, just deep relationship building, making sure that you have something to offer that person and vice versa. Kept a good connection, reached out to me, gave me a job offer, and what do you know? I'm saved from catastrophe. That really inspired me, because while I'm safe from catastrophe, I'm looking around and my friends and my peers are losing jobs left and right, left and right. Everybody's losing this, losing that. Yes, unemployment came around. People were able to take good advantage of that, but that's not a good thing. Like that's
Yeah, it's
not,
not.
yeah, yeah. I know we're, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So Javon, you was talking about people losing jobs
Mhm.
left and right. So what did that kind of inspire you to do?
Yeah. So for myself to have gained an opportunity, it's like one person gains and a million people lose. That didn't make me feel content with the blessing. It made me feel like if I bless you, you try to help my blessing pass down to somebody else.
Right.
That was the conclusion that I had came to, just wanting and desiring to pay it forward. So during the course of onboarding there, of course, I had to get adjusted to being in a virtual environment, a virtual work environment. I had already been doing it at JCPenney for a little while, but this is at a much bigger company, a huge behemoth tech company. So by me navigating this, I started to see that there were areas where I had a lot of time. Like it's not the same as working at JCPenney where you're constantly putting fires out because you're trying to help save a sinking ship. Like
Right.
this is like the ship is already sailing. All you have to do is your part and everything else is good. So I made sure that my work priorities were taken care of first and foremost. But it left me with so much time that I felt like this was a great opportunity to do exactly what I had said, pay it forward, pay this opportunity that I have forward to somebody else, help somebody else have their own story to tell.
Right.
And I went, let's see here, after starting the business, shortly after I had came home. So I think I first started it late 2019, but I officially was getting big into writing resumes, maybe some point during the summer. And then I officially filed my LLC in August of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And my goal was simple. I had a vision, and I said I want to help people earn their dreams, and I want to help people pass those same experiences and wealth down to others. So if you're able to be lucky enough to earn your dream, or find yourself with the blessing right in front of you, and take advantage of it, find ways to give that to somebody else as well. Don't take it all and turn your cheek to what's going on.
Right. So I just want to. So the name of your company is Figures,
Yep,
right?
figures. It
So I
started
just
as I'm sorry. It started as six figures because just
Yeah.
funny. Like I always thought like it was just going to be this corporate thing where I help people get these six-figure lifestyles. That's all. It's what we want, right? It's we want to
Yeah.
be in the middle class. Of course, people want to be millionaires and billionaires, but like what we see is feasible for the mass of us is these six-figure lifestyles. Like it's not that far off. So that's kind of how I came up with it. But I figured figures was more appealing and better because it doesn't set the limit. It's not just about getting six figures. It's about how do I gain financial freedom, and how do I eventually get to generational wealth. And that obviously you hear those things, it doesn't really add up with a resume. So I started to have to find ways to make that expand too.
right.
I'll say, but I said, Kashana, you got one? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, so what you said it doesn't add up with a resume, but a resume is always the starting point. Most people don't know.
Yeah.
So what are some of the tips and tricks that you give people when you're seeing their resume? And especially like people don't realize that when you're applying for a job specifically, you have to switch up your resume. So like what are some of
Yeah.
the tips and tricks that you give people?
Yeah. First and foremost, man, understand that a resume, treat that like your face card, right? So if somebody asks you, hey, do you have a business card? And you do happen to have a business card, it's not going to be a black and white piece of paper that just has a bit of details on it. It's going to be formal. It's going to be organized a certain way. You're going to try to make this thing represent you and your business. So a resume is not much different in the sense of like this piece of paper represents your professional experience. So don't treat it as if it's just something that you're checking off as a checkbox. This is what's going to separate you. This is what, yes, your skills themselves separate you, but in order to sell your skills, in order to make your skills appealable to whoever's reading it, you have to come up with a way to make that piece of paper represent you. So treat it like a face card. That's the first thing I always tell people is treat it like your face card. Second, understand that a resume is don't I mean, how do I explain this? It's not checkers with a resume. Okay. It can be checkers. You can't make it that simple, especially if your skill set is just out of this world. And everything is just usually in technical fields, it's a lot easier to get away with. But it is chess. It's a strategy behind these things. Like it's not just make a piece of paper and okay, I'll just upload it wherever. There's ways that you can, excuse me, there's ways that you can come up with like unique strategies that you can basically measure how successful your resume actually is. Like find ways to maybe start out with a resume that it does speak to your professional background. And as you're applying, see the response rate, see how many times you're landing interviews and how many times you're converting from interviews to jobs or offers. Find out how successful those resumes are, set metrics that are measurable behind your resume because the minute you just blindly apply, you're never going to understand why the resume is not working. It could be the job market, or it could be your layout, or it could be a multitude of things that are not shaping up for your resume. So again, just the second one is always understand that you can come up with a strategy, and it goes further than just like the things that you measure. It's also the information that's on your resume, like how you're organizing sentences, how you're organizing bullets, starting out with verbs, making sure that it's consistent. There's a date on every single job experience, and it's in the same format, month and year. You know what I'm saying? Like little stuff like that. Sometimes you might, like on one, you might say, you might actually spell out October 2019, but on the next line you put 1019.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's inconsistent. Even though it's saying the same thing, it creates this inconsistency. So all those little fine details leads into the first point again of face card. You want it to represent you, so make it perfect. Make that thing like there's no flaws. One thing that I know about the job market too, I found some job statistics that showed only about 2% of all cold applications. That means you just put a job offer online. You didn't have a reference or anything like that. You never had any type of connection to that company either. Cold applying only yields about 2% of all job offers.
Mm.
So that means, I mean, of course, there's a lot of job applications, right?
Right.
Out of a hiring pool, on average, you may have a couple hundred to thousands of applications. So you're competing with people who have references. You're competing with people who have references, but not only do they have references, you're competing with people who also have resumes.
Mm.
And so, what's separating them? You have to ask yourself that. And if your resume, if you're not landing any jobs or callbacks or nothing like that, there's always ways to increase your chances. You don't have to be a part of that 2%. That's the average. What about the people who are getting calls back 50% of the time that they apply? What are they doing different? How is their resume different than everybody else's if it's not the referrals? Because there is people who are getting well above 2% success with just a resume and no references, no nothing. So what are they doing different that separates them from the average resume? And that's the type of stuff that I try to teach people, is like that thought process.
Right. So would you say that the format in itself of the resume is as important as your experience that you're putting on the resume?
You said it just right. It is just as important. One is not more important than the other.
Right.
But me being in the world of like technology, would you ever show up to a website and it's just black and white text today?
No.
No, you wouldn't. And if you
Yeah.
did, you wouldn't sit there and try to read through it. So they put things in a way. It's called information architecture, where information is placed a certain way that attracts a reader's attention. So you don't only have to have the experience, but you have to. I just thought of something funny. So when you consider the people that you end up going after, a man going after a woman going after a man, or everything in between, there's usually a reason as to why a person first attracts you before you get to know them, right? So if this beauty of, if this attraction, natural attraction of who this person is or how they dress or whatever, if that's something that reels me in, now I'm willing to read the book. You know what I'm saying? Like a book cover a lot of times can attract your attention as a reader. So I think the resume works in the same way. You have to put it in a way that is going to attract the reader's attention and give them a reason to read through your resume. Otherwise, if it's choppy, if it's not drawing their attention, if it's throwing them off because it's inconsistent, then you're limiting your chances of your experience being exposed.
Right. Right. Okay. That's I mean that's a good analogy. That makes sense.
Very good
So
analogy.
so obviously, Javon, we know that figures isn't the only business that you're running at this time, right? So I want to get into something else that you've delved into, which I really enjoy, is your platform for your show. That's all I'm gonna say. I want to let you explain the rest of it.
The lost generation, man.
Yes.
The lost generation. That you know what? If there's anything that I'm proud of doing for myself and putting my own time and money, putting my own hard work in, working with people who were grinding with me on the same project, it'd be this one. And that goes to say a lot, because there was no class, there was no job, there was no parents, there was nobody else pushing me and telling me that this had to be done, right? It was just I had a will, excuse me, to create something that I felt like would inspire somebody else. And so the show, The Lost Generation, is it's a seasonal podcast, visual podcast. So we do everything with a video recording, full production team. The original production team is 100% Black. So I had got with one of my really close friends. Shout out Chaz Davis. He is a phenomenal cinematographer, producer, anything to do with a camera. If he's behind it, it will be great. So I got with him, and I've been working with him for a little while on a few personal projects. Once we clicked, man, I told him my vision and he fell in love with it. And we told somebody else, they fell in love with it. Now I had people willing to work with me just off the idea. We ain't even talking money. We ain't even talking all this. We just talking about what's the idea. Let's do it.
Right.
So the show, about the show, it is, I think it is a lot of like, okay, so for instance, in society today, with the issues we face, the only, or rather the mass like appeal of what is success, we look to celebrities and we look to people who look like us who are in the only positions of power that that is common amongst us. And my question to that was always like, well, if we're not looking at them, then who else are we supposed to be looking at? They get into these positions, and even though they might not be qualified, right? Qualified. I say quotes because what is qualified? But even though they might not be qualified political thinkers and stuff like that, it's very interesting to know how conscious they can be at times. I think because of capitalism and getting indulged in it, becoming a millionaire, you might lose a sense of touch with the rest of the community. But at the same time, who else are we supposed to look to? I kept asking myself that. And I think it became clear like, well, if we're all experiencing these things real time, me, you, Dre, our friends back at college, the friends we grew up, went to high school with, grade school with, friends of friends, family members, whatever the case. If we're all in these same categories and we relate to one another, then who's to say we can't listen to each other?
Okay.
Yeah.
And when I say listen to each other, this is what we talked about with empathy. How do we draw this sense of empathy and make that a common characteristic in our community to start to change things? And that thought was like based on the fact of the traumas and experiences, identity crises, those types of things that our generation deals with. So by us being the generation that is like, I mean, just so powerful, technology enabled, the first generation, I base it off of a cross between millennials and Generation Z, by the way. I think that there is such a very like unique medium between those two generations. But I based it off of those two. I did a huge reflection of the generation that came directly after the First World War, thrown into the Great Depression, thrown into war, thrown into the Spanish flu, and just trying to understand like what that was like to have literally lost people to war, literally lost them to that wartime. Today, we're losing people to a different war, but we're lost in society. We're lost in what's right and what's wrong. Sometimes we're lost in our faith, direction, sense of purpose, and we're losing each other. We're losing each other to suicide. We're losing each other to drugs. We're losing each other to gang wars. We're losing each other to world wars. Um, Rap beefs, like, you know what I'm saying? So much.
Yeah.
It's so much, and we're so lost, man. Like, we don't have a Malcolm X and MLK on the streets anymore, because anytime a leader like that steps up, he gets off. And it's like I think times like that really just speak to why we are where we are now. Like it's so controlled. It's a very controlled environment. There's so much data. We talk about tech a little bit. There's so much data of ours that we don't own. That once you have data, by the way, is the world's number one resource. So the fact that we don't have much ownership in the world's number one resource already tells me that we're lacking. We're lacking in a world where it's David versus Goliath, and we're definitely the Davids. We make up the David.
But you know, Javon, you say that you're talking about the Black community, correct? When you refer to that, you know, you're
Yeah.
saying that we're the Davids, but I think the bigger problem is that the mentality that the Black community that we have as a Black community as a whole is that we don't realize how much control we really have the potential to have.
And that's very important, because even in the analogy of David and Goliath, to say that we're David is not a bad thing, right? Like,
no, I get what you're going.
exactly.
I know where you're going. Yeah,
Exactly. So to be able to say that like I think where we're at right now is that we all can agree that we're the smaller of the two, right? And the mentality of how you respond. The original conversation we were having about like getting back up and fighting back and just standing on your 2 feet, those kinds of things. Like, I think that's the type of message we have to keep relaying to the community is like we're in a fight, and even though we're not outnumbered, even though even though we're out powered at the moment, it's not the type, like we're not outpowered in the way you think we are. We actually have more
Yeah.
power, maybe spiritually and in other ways than finances could ever bring.
Yeah.
So and we're so powerful that like as a community, we have the brain power and the knowledge to get that power restored. You know what I'm saying? Like to restore the financial power, to restore um equality amongst each other. Not even like forget talking about integration. Forget talking about those things for just a moment. We have to get integrated amongst each other, and we have
Yeah.
that power. Like we have that power. It
Yeah.
is in us.
It starts in like you, yeah, it's within, like
You
you
got to
said,
grow from the
within
inside
us.
out.
Starts
Yep.
inwardly. We can't look to other. I'm not to digress, but we can't look to other communities for
Yeah. There you go.
assistance, right? We have to look inwardly within ourselves. Like you said, Javon, uplift each other, give each other a platform, and then
Mm-hmm.
that's what happens. Then we all start to grow, and then we
Right.
can all start to see the potentiality that we have as a community, and then we reach our full potential. And
And it's crazy because it's all based on faith. Like
yeah,
until you have an entire community that has strong faith. And what I mean by faith when I say this, starting out with God, yes, but simply the ability to believe things even when you can't see it. That simple mindset, whether you believe in God or not, if you believe that things can happen for you without even seeing it happen, sometimes without having examples to follow right in front of you, things will start to change. Like
mm-hmm.
and I think if we can keep manifesting that faith and helping grow it, helping harvest, plant seeds of faith for other people, we'll be a lot better off. But it does suck because as strong as your faith can be, we still, if you anybody who is strong in their faith and particularly their relationship with God knows that we're up against generational curses. So it's about having that faith, knowing the truth. You still have to have the faith that you can break free, that you can that maybe it's your time and your generation's time. You're in the right moment at the right time to be a part of the break free. Excuse me, the breakthrough. I think that's the right word.
Yeah, true. Absolutely. I agree. So where do you just completed season one of the
Mm-hmm.
Lost Generation show. What plans do you have for season two?
Man, season two, we are shooting in let's see, the first half of the season we're shooting in Dallas.
Okay.
Second half of the season we're shooting in Norfolk and DC. We still have some decision making to do. You may get one and not the other, but definitely shooting in two locations between Dallas and the East Coast. The timeline, we're looking at the summer, so we're hoping to go ahead and push the second season out just before the summer, give everybody some hope and inspiration hearing some of these stories before we go have fun and turn up. Hopefully COVID and the pandemic will be a bit more under control. It seems like things are getting a little bit better, but yeah, definitely want to get that out there. The vibe of the season, I think the first season, like we didn't really have a blueprint, so season was like setting the blueprint. We pushed something out off of faith. We pushed something out. When I say faith again, not being able to see and just doing something that you thought was going to be great. Sorry, once again, I got to figure out how this thing works. Okay. But like just simply having the faith that like if you put your mind to it, you can do it. You might not know exactly what the season's going to look like, but you can at least walk in it and you can get through it. So that's the mindset we came with. And pushing out that first season definitely was a huge headache, a lot of tension, a lot of pressure. And I think like the first season, it really just brought me well out of my comfort zone. So far out of my comfort zone that like I started experiencing anxiety from it. you putting your face on a camera and putting it in front of other people when you're having deep and intimate conversations about yourself and surrounding with other people, just different things like that. I think it made it tough, but it again set the foundation and gave us a blueprint. And we said, you know what, we have to remember why we did it. We didn't do this to become popular. We didn't do this to be the most famous, whatever. We did this to draw inspiration. And anytime I got a DM or the show got a DM about how it helped somebody with new perspective or inspired them in this way, or there was such a great conversation, they enjoyed it, whatever. That was what started to make me shift. And I was also going through my spiritual journey. I didn't start it during the show. I started it after we shot the show. So like all of that was the me before a guy had helped me with another version of myself, helped me and drew me in closer. So second season, you'll hear a lot more deep, intimate conversations about faith, especially with God, and then anxieties and identities and stuff like that. We're gonna dive a lot deeper into those things because I think we talked about some less important stuff in some cases in the first season. A lot of it was great, but I think like 30 or 40% we can definitely do more with it.
Okay. I see. So with the platforms that you have, Givon, from creating resumes for people to providing a positive image and providing positive insight with your Lost Generation show.
Mm-hmm.
This is pretty introspective, but I just want to know, where do you feel your biggest impact will be in life?
I feel like I will never find out until I'm gone. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like I'll never know what my biggest impact will be until I'm long gone. But I think interestingly enough, it's gonna have to do something with technology. That's been one of the most, how would I explain, unique abilities God ever gave me, was to understand technology and to understand like how to work with people who are extremely gifted and talented at engineering.
Right.
And because I have that ability, I've put the pressure on myself to take that as far as I possibly can. My dreams and goals growing up were to be a politician, and I thought like those were the people who were making impact. Those were the people who were making change. Those were the people who shape our society. But I think I quickly like realized at some point in college that wasn't necessarily the truth. Everyone has their own paths and journeys and can be inspirational. You have a singer who can be just as impactful as a freaking politician or whatever. Like in terms of what impact they can have on the rest of society. LeBron James, I'm just gonna keep using him. He has a huge following. The fact that he's a sports athlete, a super megastar, um, he has a ton of influence. He can make people believe or think things at his fingertips because he has that following and he does the right thing with it. So shout out LeBron. But yeah, like seeing that made me feel like, well, technology, you can have whatever impact you want. Matter of fact, this isn't a sport. This is real life. You're building things that can change the world. So why sell yourself short? You're not selling a record. You're not trying to sell nobody on anything. You're trying to build something that is going to give your people power. You're trying to build something that is going to take you and your family and your friends of family to another level. So by me understanding that, I quickly realized like most of my impact was going to be in technology just because I'm one of few who really understand this, like understand technology to the point of building multi-million or billion-dollar ideas.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I think the important
So,
thing too, Givon, would be to say to be patient and trusting in the process of finding what your purpose is and
Yes.
what you're meant to do in this life. Because I think so many, well, first of all, there's a lot of people in this life that don't know what they want to do, so they become stagnant and they move along in life envious of other people and jealous of other people because they've never found what they're meant to do and what their purpose is. So with that being said, I do believe you have to be patient though and finding what your purpose is, but patient, but also constantly working to see.
Yeah, yeah. It's something you said too about like the envy and jealousy and hate and stuff. Unfortunately, it's a conscious choice. It becomes hard to feel bad, but I will say I've had a lot of reflection on like that sort of negative energy that I felt in my
Mm-hmm.
life leading up to where
Yeah.
I am even today, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I always just asked, like, why does a person feel like that? Particularly people that look like me and you, particularly people in our community, right?
Mm-hmm.
Generationally, our people have suffered so much that like I don't even know what like how genetics really works, but some of these things are built in. And again, even though it is a conscious choice, I choose to like still feel choosing the path of love and not letting those things like make me think so heavy on them to the point of like I just start hating people. When I say hating people, I don't mean hating like I'm a hater, but hating people like I can't stand being around people, no new friends because all the people in my circle are solid and there, you know, other people out there are probably just gonna hate or whatever. We get it inside and out regardless. But again, just that reflection of me thinking of hate, envy, and the rest of that that comes with it, I still hold a sense of empathy for our community because there's so many traumas that have led for people to think and feel the way they do when you ain't never had nothing and you see somebody else with something, um, that feeling it almost comes natural. You just have to. I feel sometimes when like hate hate arises in my spirit. I feel it. I feel when envy arises in my spirit. I feel when jealousy like arises in my spirit.
Yeah.
The only thing I say to other people is like when you feel those things, you have to literally ask or talk to yourself, counsel yourself and like literally tell your mind and heart to change, tell it to not feel like that, or ask yourself why you do feel like that,
Right.
and just realize that that other person's success shouldn't make you feel that way. You have to rewire yourself sometimes, or take God's guidance on it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Javon, as as a young black man that has recently graduated college and is in the
Mm.
work field and the entrepreneurship field, what is one piece of advice you would give to a young black man who maybe is graduating college this year or has is fresh out of college?
Be the difference maker. And when I say be the difference maker, what's going to make you different is what should be normal. Think about it like that. What should be what's going to make you different should be normal. So what I mean by that is it's not normal in society for young black men in today's society to be gentlemen, right? That's not a norm right now. Like and I say that with a grain of salt. You guys can take that with a grain of salt. There's some very great young men, honorable men that walk this earth, that are of color. But the point is, in American society, particularly, it's not necessarily a common trait. For you to be different, you would then be a gentleman, and that should be normal. You know what I'm saying? Like little
Right.
stuff like that. And I'm just using that one as an example. There's so many other things that I feel like can make a person different until things are back to normal or things are normal in a positive way. The other thing too is like don't let the thought like don't let the thought of not being qualified for something stop you from attaining the qualifications.
Mm.
So right now, with figures, we're introducing financial literacy, anywhere from personal finance and the rest of those. We talked about stocks and everything else. The stocks right now, I'm the only person with my company that's hosting any sort of stock sessions. I host them all for free, by the way. If you guys are ever interested, earnfigures.com. Figures does not have an E on it. So FIGURS, earnfigures.com. You can go there and you can sign up for free stock courses. I host a course right now once a month. We'll bring some more people in with the qualifications to host them weekly, whatever. But the point is, I may look at myself and say, man, Givon, you're only making like 10 to 20K. Like, do you really, or however much I'm making in the market, right? Do you really think that you have the ability to start teaching people these things? Like, what if you're just getting lucky? You know what I'm saying? You can start asking yourself these and you start doubting yourself. And then you don't want to share this information or knowledge with other people because you think of how they're going to look at you or how they're going to view you, how they're going to say you're not even qualified. You know what I'm saying? Like those types of things. And of course, the other side is you don't want to mislead people. You don't want to tell people put your money here when you're risking yours too, and you guys can all lose money because there's going to come a lot of bad feelings anytime you have Black folks or people who don't come from much putting their money up and trusting you with their money, and you lose it for them, or they feel like that. It's not that you're losing it for them, but they feel like you just lost them their money. Man, there's a lot of negative energy that comes with that.
Yeah.
That's less than they had in the first place. So you have to think of those things, but don't let those things be the reason you stop either. If I know something that just got me to times my money by 9 in a matter of 3 months, why not share that information at least for free? You know what I'm saying? I ain't telling you to get to pay for this knowledge. I'm just gonna put it out there. That is me stepping out my comfort zone and doing things I'm not qualified for until I'm qualified. That is literally me not letting that negative thought or that doubt, that sense of complacency take over and prevent me from my blessings, prevent me from other people's blessings, because I have information that I can share that can be transferred.
Exactly. And also not letting what's perceived as the status quo prevent you from stepping out of your comfort zone and
exactly
teaching other people, right? Because you never know what you can teach. You never know
what you can teach.
Exactly.
What's valuable to other people. And the other thing is too, like, there's so many people who are qualified today that look like us. There's a few examples like Earn Your Leisure and a few others where they're teaching these things. A lot of this information is free out there. But they had to start somewhere. You know what I'm saying? They making $100K, $1 million or whatever, and they're teaching that stuff free game and in some cases paid content. But the point is they had to start somewhere.
Yes.
At some point, they were just like me, making 10 to 20, 30, 40, $50,000 in the market. And whether or not they started teaching it by then, they had to gain that credibility within themselves to have the confidence to teach other people. So I'm one of many just trying to do the same thing and be consistent, find new ways. And if I'm not doing a good job, guess what? I have a company. I can put people in position who can give you the right advice. But the point is, I'm just trying to help somebody who might look at my situation and say, hey, he looks like he's doing pretty good. How can I learn to do the same thing?
Absolutely. Givon, man, listen, it was so great having you on the show, man. Like, you already know my brother, man. I love you. And this is honestly been one of the best shows we've had. So we've got about a minute left. We like to close out with some shout outs. So Givon, are there any shout outs that you want to get before we close out?
I know the first one I gave was D Falana. Shout out on the Everyday Hustle brand. Shout out to the kids of Yo High. Kinnick is a great place where me and Kashawn went to school at. And I just want to give a shout out to everybody there. And shout out to Dallas, Triple D. Shout out to the last but not least, 757 Virginia, hometown. Just want to give a quick shout out, man. That's pretty much it.
Dre, any shout outs you want to
give? Shout out to my guy Brandon. He came on the last show. We were talking a little bit, and I wish he was here to pick your brain about especially entrepreneurship. You guys could have probably shared some stuff. Shout out my guy Lord in the Stitch, one of my best friends. He's just trying to make his way make his way, man, out there in LA doing his thing. Great clothing line. You guys should check it out. And shout out to the fans, man. And thank you so much, Givon. Like, this is a great show. We really do appreciate this.
Hey, man, much love to y'all.
Absolutely. Shout out to the Nerdy in Many Ways YouTube channel. Shout out to the D'Anthony Evans YouTube channel. Shout out to the Tatiana Jasmine YouTube channel. Shout out to Choir Boy Clothing Company. Shout out to KRSN1 radio show. Shout out to the Lost Generation show. Shout out to Figures.
Yes, sir.
Business. Shout out to the Everyday Therapy podcast ran by Nate Moore, a new podcast that's very good, very insightful. And shout out to the fans, like you said. And Givon, most importantly, shout out to you, man. We love you, bro. So grateful having you on the show.
Yes, sir.
Can't wait to have you back on again. Guys, we'll be back again next week with a new episode. Be sure to tune in, subscribe to our YouTube channel and our Patreon channel. Continue to stay safe, be vigilant, make smart decisions, guys. And until next time, peace.
See y'all.